Hey everybody, it's Corporal Speculation bringing you my latest video, and this one will be a bit of a sequel to the last one that I did on the 50-year mortgage. Thought that was a terrible idea. I think that is kind of the general consensus around the internet. But I want to talk a little bit about solutions. How can we bring housing costs down in the United States? And my answer is through the free market. The way that we've brought down costs for everything always in the history of time. And the problem, in my opinion, are zoning laws that are standing in the way specifically of prefabricated houses and 3D printed houses. This is the way of the future, and these laws are standing in the way. So today I want to talk a little bit about how I could see the prefabrication boom working, and same with 3D printed houses. You know, these 3D printed houses can go up for as little as 10K. I mean, you can see them as little as 40K for something really nice. And you could get like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, nice starter home, very cheap, built up on land. And if you dezoned these lands and got rid of the legislation that requires stick-built houses and allowed for 3D printed houses to proliferate and grow and economies of scale to take place so that people got better at these procedures, I think you could see costs come down even more than that. And these houses are pretty cool. I mean, they are weatherproof, hurricane proof. It's made of a plastic concrete mix, which is pretty cool, very strong. Trees can land on them and they won't break. You just move the tree off. I think in a lot of ways they're superior to stick-built houses. And on the other side of that, you have prefabs, and these can be moved on semi-trucks in the back of flatbed trailers. You can move them around the nation on the existing rail lines that imported products are used to move around the nation. And you could really build something cool. I mean, you could build up these prefab houses that come out and then they'll fold out into a big 3-bedroom house. And that would be exactly what the country needs. I mean, you could do that for, right now there's houses for between 100 and 50K. With economies of scale and gigafactories and these things being built up to larger scales, I think you could see that price come down significantly. And that would let off a set of innovation that could really change the nature of the country. You could see housing prices absolutely collapse. People could go out, especially if the properties were dezoned, and buy a 10-acre property for pennies at a tax deed auction and set up 20 modular homes on there and have an excellent income source if you can afford to set that up, and then rent those houses out or sell them and make a huge profit. You know, these are absolutely possible ideas, and the only thing standing in the way are the zoning laws. You know, is the government saying that you're not allowed to do that with your land. And I'm here to say, especially with the barrel of the gun that we're looking down, and we're talking about 50-year mortgages, maybe we should resurrect this conversation. Let's talk about the zoning laws. Are these really what we have in mind? Is this working? You know, sometimes a decision is made by us as a nation, and we really don't see the negative side effects for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And by then we forgot that we even made the decision, and we just decide that this is why things are the way they are. And I'll tell you the truth is, I'm a landlord. I've got 2 pieces of property with houses on them that I've got rented out, and this would hurt me. And this is the real reason I think why that we don't think more about it. But if we did put something like this in place, the value of the stick-built houses would pretty much collapse. And that would leave me upside down. That would be very rough for me economically. But I would still say that this is a policy that I would support, because I see my kid, you know, my employees that work for me that are really struggling. And I think if they could have affordable housing, I mean, that would be such an absolutely massive change to their overall life. It's a huge thing. If you had a house that you could maybe 20K prefab that somebody could move into, I mean, you could charge $600 for rent, and these kids could move out, get a roommate, $300 every month in order to live out of the house at 18 years old. And I know a lot of people are hearing that and they're thinking, I don't know, man, like I really, what does that benefit me? And I would say, you know, think about humans as a species. We only develop mentally until we're 25. So what are the impacts of somebody staying at home with their parents until they're 23, 25, 28, 30, 32? Do they miss something by not leaving the nest until that late? What is the effect of that on society when we're talking about thousands, tens of thousands of young men who never really stepped out on their own? Well, if we could provide affordable housing through the free market and no real government programs here, just deregulation, people, voluntary adults interacting and exchanging money in contracts, and everybody's happy with it, and these kids can get out of the house at 18 and start looking at their lives. Hey, I work at McDonald's, I make $2,000 a month, and I'm working part-time, but it is enough for me to afford to live with my roommate, and life is what life is. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And then, but what do I do if I want more money? Do I go ask my mom and my dad for a little bit more allowance? No, I go get a better job. I go get a trade. I build my skill set so that I can afford better, right? This is the basis of our society. And if we want to grow, I think this is a fantastic way to grow. You get these kids out of the house and they're moved in, they're paying way less to live than they are now. And then they start making decisions like they used to. I want to become more valuable into the economy, so I make more money and I can keep more money and I can save up for an even better house. Maybe me and my girlfriend, we move in together and we start a family a little bit earlier because life's a little bit easier. And I think a lot of the economic woes that we're seeing, at the center of it is housing, is housing insecurity. And the problem is that we just see the housing rates spike and go up and up and up. But Harry Truman used to say, economics, there's always two sides. He wanted a one-armed economist because, the economist would always tell him, on one hand you had this, on the other hand you have that. And this is a similar situation. It would really hurt a lot of people to do this at the same point. There's a lot of people tied up in the construction industry that this would hurt. That's creative destruction. That's a thing that we talk about in the free market. There's a lot of people with a lot of equity, a lot of older people with equity in their homes that they depend on, and that would really hurt them as well. So overall, and there's landlords like me. I would lose my shirt. I would have to probably remove my tenant because they would want to go live somewhere way cheaper that's just as nice. I'd probably have to sell the property, and I wouldn't have that extra stream of income. And that would be tough. It'd be tough for me, and it would be tough for a lot of people. But I do think it's worth it. I think it's certainly worth considering dezoning and then punting this stuff over to factories because the benefits that I'm talking about are absolutely just surface level. The reality is once you punt it over and you have these gigafactories and you have these massive companies that are 3D printing houses or creating the prefabs, then standards can really start to evolve. We're not even sure what that might end up looking like, but I've seen solar panels that are rollout that you could put on roofs of buildings fairly cheaply, and they could do that in the factory or as part of the 3D printing process, and solar panel usage could spike. You'd stop seeing so many trees get cut down for the lumber and aluminum and concrete, plastic polymers that make this type of stuff would be a lot cheaper and better. They'd be a lot better at handling storms and not breaking down over time. So there's a lot of benefit here, I think, for the average American consumer. But again, that's all surface level. Does everybody want a smart house? Can you install just a $100 tablet on every wall that controls all the systems and integrates with the solar panels and does things of that nature? Sure. It's so tough to say what the free market would come up with, but if you want a reference, think back to what cars looked like 80, 90 years ago before we moved over to factories. And now, what do they look like now? There's been a lot of change. And that's the type of thing that we could see if we just stepped back, deregulated, and allowed the free market to step in and solve this problem. And people don't even see it as zoning laws is what's causing it. But if you allowed the innovation to flourish, you could really bring down costs. And at the same time, you could develop homes that are a lot better, a lot safer, last a lot longer, and have a lot of really cool features that people would absolutely adore. So I don't like to just complain. I like to bring solutions, but of course, bringing solutions always means that people can beat you up a little bit. So I just, beat me up in the comment section. Let me know where I'm wrong. What did I miss also? What are some other solutions? There's a lot of ways to tackle this problem, and I just wanted to set my mind for the record. So throw me a like, throw me a comment, throw me a subscription if you like this video. And honestly, I just hope it gives you something to think about. And even if you hate my idea, even if you think I'm an absolute moron, that's fine. That's wonderful. What's your idea? How do we fix this? How do we come together as a country? We're the United States of America. Let's solve this problem. How do we do it? Let me know. Thanks, guys.